Chapter 545, The Enraged Kalvetua. Danitz felt choked, unable to say a word. He quickly stepped aside and watched as Jayaman's sparrow lit the candles, burned some powder, and dripped some extract. Taking in the smell that pervaded the air, he couldn't help but raise his voice. "Why you're using the wrong materials, right?" He remembered that the resistance didn't use things like full moon essence oil, slumber flower, or chamomile when sacrificing to the sea god. "It's not like you're praying to the Evernight goddess." Klein turned his head to look at him, then he returned his gaze to the altar. That wouldn't be an issue. As a professional who often offered and received sacrifices, he was very aware that the burning of extracts, essential oils, and herbal powder mainly had two uses. One was to help the ritual's host to better adjust his spirituality and enter the proper state, and the other was to please the corresponding deity, to please the target of the sacrificial object, and to increase the probability of a response. In this aspect, every deity had certain characteristics and preferences. This sacrifice, on the other hand, mainly relied on Kalvetua's abnormal state of mind. It had gone completely crazy, and it thirsted for the gray fog's aura. Neither of the two could be missing, and everything else wasn't important. As long as the aforementioned two conditions were satisfied, pleasing Kalvetua or not didn't affect the ritual. It neither increased the success rate, nor would it increase the possibility of failure. It could be completely handled in a perfunctory manner. If Kalvetua still retains its reason, and even if I were to strictly follow the requirements of its ritual, do you think it would respond to me? Klein silently lampooned and took half a step back, ready to start the most important part of the ritual. He thought for a moment, then without turning his head, he said directly, "Stay further away." "Me?" Instead of getting angry, Danitz was overjoyed. He quickly nodded. "All right, okay." He rushed to the door of the warehouse, planning to escape the moment something went wrong. Klein half closed his eyes, cogitating about the countless spherical lights that overlapped each other, and he quickly entered the proper state. He chanted softly in Elvish, "Adorer of the sea and spirit world, guardian of the Rorsted archipelago, ruler of the undersea creatures, master of tsunamis and storms, the great Kalvetua. Your devoted servant prays for your attention. I pray for you to take this offering. I pray for you to open the gates to your kingdom." As he said the awkward sentences one after another, the sound of wind rose within the wall of spirituality, as if it was going to overturn everything. Klein's clothes fluttered in the wind as he took out another small metal bottle that he had prepared beforehand. He poured about 5 milliliters of the remaining 1,000-faced hunter's blood into the air. This was a material filled with spirituality. The strong winds sucked the drops of blood, howling as it drilled into the candle flame that symbolized sea god Kalvetua. Without a sound, the candle flame burgeoned to form an illusory door. On the surface, there were symbols and magic labels. From the inside, the faint sound of crashing sea waves could be heard. Suddenly, all signs of movement vanished. There was only the sound of breathing that reverberated through the illusory door, as though there was something hiding behind it, something massive that was suppressing its hunger with great difficulty. Huff, huff, huff. The sound of the loud, heavy breathing became clearer and clearer, to the point that even despite being situated at the door of the warehouse, Danitz still felt his scalp tingle. Bang! The illusory door suddenly opened, and something that visibly resembled a hurricane poured out. Amidst the sharp wailing sounds, Danitz felt the invisible wall of spirituality shatter. He discovered that he had been thrown into the air like a small boat in a storm. He slammed into the door, producing a dull thud. He fell outside the warehouse, his back scuffed from several wooden splinters. The scarlet fireball that he had instinctively condensed in his hand instantly dimmed and was quickly extinguished in the hurricane, like a candle that was about to burn out. While he was flying in midair, he saw what looked to be a bloody, gaping mouth appear behind the illusory door. It revealed milky white sharp teeth, which was slightly curved and longer than a human arm, as it madly smashed against the illusory door in a bid to enter the real world. Its beast-like howls first echoed inside the warehouse, causing Danitz to bleed from his ears and nose. Klein also flew up into the sky as a result of the hurricane, and his line of sight was immediately occupied by a bloody, forked, and massive forked tongue that burst forth with sparking lightning. His body was scorched black as it stiffened in the air. The forked tongue pierced through his body as it was reduced to ashes. Klein's figure appeared on the other side. His hat had fallen off and his clothes were messy. He looked rather wretched. Fortunately, he knew that a situation would occur, and he knew that there was going to be danger. He had constantly been on high alert, and he didn't let down his guard as he used paper figurine substitutes just in time. At this moment, Kalvetua, who was situated behind the unperturbed, illusory door, finally realized that its violent blows had no effect and stopped. It took a deep breath and caused the blue seawater to gush in from all directions. The water then collapsed into a whirlpool that emitted a terrifying suction force. It was so powerful that it could swallow a cargo ship. The iron cigar case on the altar flew into the vortex. The tiny cauldron containing some herbal ashes flew up and into the whirlpool. Many objects within the warehouse, along with the soil, were thrown into the whirlpool. Klein also flew up, as he found it difficult to resist being thrown into the whirlpool. He tried to snap his fingers to ignite flames and leap out of the whirlpool's reach, but the suction force and the hurricane spoiled his plans. His figure suddenly became thinner, turning into a paper figurine. As the paper figurine fell into the whirlpool, Klein, who had emerged from another position, once again soared into the air, unable to extricate himself from the terrifying suction force. At this critical moment, he no longer hesitated. He made the black glove he wore on his left palm turn pale as it was tinged with a slightly dark green color. He activated Creeping Hunger, and he directly used Steel Mavetti's soul. Klein's body suddenly grew heavy as he pushed forward with his left palm. An ice wall that wasn't too thick solidified in front of him, helping him temporarily isolate Sea God's whirlpool. Taking advantage of this, Klein landed, his feet heavily landing on the ground as he sank deep into the ground. Catcha! The ice wall lasted only a second before it was shredded to pieces by the boundless suction force, and the remnants flew into the huge sea serpent's throat. Relying on the strength of a zombie, Klein used both of his feet to hold himself in place and no longer flew up again. However, he was still unable to stop himself from sliding towards the illusory door where Kalvetua's gaping mouth was. He drew 2 deep ravines on the ground in the process. Outside the warehouse, Danitz wasn't affected by the suction force of the whirlpool. Instead, he tried condensing a fireball to throw to the side, allowing J.M. and Sparrow to jump out of his predicament and escape. Unfortunately, the flames were extinguished again and again by the hurricane. As Klein drew closer to the illusory door, he could smell the stench of blood and decay. Right in front of him were milky white fangs that emitted a chilly air. His thoughts raced, and he quickly came up with a solution. The solution was simple. It was to throw out the all-black eye that originated from Mariontis Trisego. Since you want to make a whirlpool in the sea in a bid to devour everything, I will make you consume another bottle of a Beyonder potion without any supplementary ingredients, as well as the mental corruption of the true creator. If that's the case, I don't believe that you, who's already on the verge of collapse, will be able to hold on. Klein gritted his teeth and reached into his pocket. Perhaps it had sensed his malicious intent, or perhaps it had lost its patience. But at this moment, Kalvetua suddenly raised its head and let out a long howl, causing the seawater whirlpool in his throat to collapse and disintegrate into countless water droplets which sprayed out of the illusory door. Splash! Torrential rain fell in the warehouse, and a dazzling silver ball of intertwined lightning condensed in Kalvetua's throat once again. With a boom, it spat out that lightning ball. Amidst the torrential rain, the silver ball of lightning transformed into streaks of stunning lightning bolts that quickly expanded outwards. It destroyed the frugal altar and occupied the entire warehouse. Sizzle! Klein's figure kept phasing in and out of existence amidst the sea of lightning. His body would char and turn into scraps of paper. Outside the warehouse, Danitz also suffered its effects. All his hair stood up as his body convulsed. After continuously using paper figurine substitutes and approaching his limit, Klein finally managed to withstand it until the lightning subsided. As for the illusory door, It was affected by the complete destruction of the ritual and quickly closed. Creak! Sea god Kalvetua's hisses of indignation were isolated by the door. After a moment, the illusory door completely disappeared. The surroundings were in a wretched mess. Only a candle was left on the altar, weakly swaying its flame. Bang! Danitz leaned forward against the warehouse's wall, barely standing at the doorway. He tried to speak, but he couldn't stop convulsing. He could only express his grievance with his eyes. Jayaman Sparrow is really a madman. I can still remember the horror I experienced in Banzi Harbor, and I still have nightmares about it. Previously, when he was picking out items offered by the resistance, he attracted the curse of the sea god. I was so frightened that I almost ran away while on our journey back. This time, he even did some sacrificial ritual and nearly summoned Kalvetua over. It was really extremely dangerous just now. Why does he love to take risks so much and enjoy causing major trouble? Time after time, he searches for thrills while on the brink of death. Is this a manifestation of his craziness, or is there another reason? Sea god Kalvetua is still very strong. Even though it's on the brink of death, and there's the door of sacrifice in between us, it was still able to release a portion of its strength that could easily finish me off, as expected of a demigod that can fight against a sea king. Klein pulled his feet out of the ground and saw that his boots were in tatters. At the same time, he found that, regardless of it being due to luck or an inevitability, Kalvetua had accepted his sacrifice in all sense of the word. This was because the huge sea serpent had swallowed the iron cigar case, which had been tainted with the gray fog's aura and many other things while producing the whirlpool. In other words, I can try to locate its hiding place in the spirit world, but I'll have to wait for its death so that it can't interfere and resist my divination. This search would require me to enter the spirit world, and I can't keep using the gray fog forever. Klein quietly let out a breath. He felt the glove on his left hand become filled with an indescribable madness and hunger. It seemed like it was going to devour the wearer if it wasn't fed. There are no sinners around. Klein turned his head to look at Danitz, who was standing by the door. Danitz's mind suddenly tightened. He felt as if he was being targeted by a monster and was about to become food for the other party. The hunger he felt at a spiritual level had made him tremble slightly. He yearned to immediately turn around and flee. Then he heard Jayaman Sparrow's indifferent voice. "Close the door from the outside." "All right." Resisting the residual pain from the electric shock, Danitz moved the door, which had been sent flying open, barely closing the hold. Klein seized the moment to carry out a sacrificial ritual. He prayed to himself and responded to himself by throwing creeping hunger that was about to lose control above the fog. The mystical item that had frightened Danitz, so much so that he didn't dare to resist, immediately became docile, gentle, and tame.